Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new Nvidia daily update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Nvidia. Let's talk about what the hell happened in the markets today, what we can expect moving forward, and all that good stuff. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. And of course, if you enjoy my technical analysis, thoughts on the charts, etc., well, again, I do share my thoughts with my members every single day as the market's open, as the market is trading. So definitely check that out. That link is, of course, down below. For just $3 a month, you get access to all my Tesla updates, options flows, and broader market updates. $5 a month adds Nvidia to that if you're interested for Nvidia updates. And of course, $7 a month includes everything else, non-Tesla, non-Nvidia stocks is that I share, private access to my Discord. We have a chat room there. We have I do chart requests with members every single Sunday. So again, would love to have you there. But jumping into it, Nvidia down 5% on the day, closing at 183 and change, right? Again, the market definitely not having a very good day today. The Trump plus China news came out and the market absolutely tanked, which, of course, Nvidia naturally follows the market pretty closely for the most part. So what does this actually mean for the stock moving forward? Is this bad? Is this bearish? Or are the bulls still hanging on? Well, it's close. I'm not gonna lie. It's a little bit. It's a little iffy here ish. It's Nvidia's actually, compared to most Mac stocks, actually looks still I would argue the best, to be completely honest with you. But that's not saying much considering most of them don't. I mean, Google doesn't look atrocious too, honestly. Google and I think Nvidia probably look the best, which isn't saying much considering a lot of them do look not great, but it's a toughie. It's a toughie. So let's talk about the good news, right? What's the good news? Well, Nvidia got a double rejection at 195, right? We mentioned that 195 is a crucial level. The stock likes $5 increments, and it needs to break 195 to see 200. We got pretty close to it, right? We got to like pretty much 196 almost, so only about $4-ish away from my $200 target. So not atrocious, right? Not atrocious, pretty close. But does today's candle invalidate the $200 target? Is Nvidia going lower, or is this a bear trap, right? That's the main question. It's a difficult thing to call. I'll be honest. On a day like today, it's hard to just come to a straight conclusion like that. So the good news is the fact that Nvidia doesn't look atrocious still compared to most other stocks, at least the Mac 7. It actually arguably looks one of the best still. But, well, let's continue with the good news. It is trying to hold the 21 EMA ever so slightly, but it's there. It's trying. We did lose the 9 EMA, which is not my favorite thing, but we're still holding the 21 EMA by the smallest of margins, if you will, and we're also by the smallest of margins trying to still turn this area that was obviously a major area of resistance into support. So there is potential still. Nvidia doesn't look hopeless still, despite this absolutely abysmal looking candle. It's not the worst thing in the world. And on top of that, we also have this rough trend line, this rising trend line right here that Nvidia is pretty much right at right now that I also would not want to lose. Essentially, if Nvidia goes below 181, that to me would be a pretty big concern. I do not want to see Nvidia lose 181 because not only does that start losing a pretty important level, but it also loses this trend line. And if the stock is truly bullish, if the stock truly wants to go back to 200, I don't see a reason why we should be losing such key levels, personally speaking. So the point I'm trying to make is, from a bullish perspective, the stock actually is still trying to hang on, all things considered, and it doesn't look that bad. It doesn't look great, but it doesn't look that bad either. There is some potential still here for the bulls. I definitely would not fully count out the bulls just yet. But again, below 181, it becomes a problem. Okay, now it's not looking as good anymore, and this whole situation up here, it becomes a bit of a massive trap, massive bull trap, and essentially a false breakout. That is where the concerns begin. But until then, I wouldn't fully discount them. Now, let's talk about the bad signs. Well, the bad sign to me, and this is something that is giving me some early signs that, some levels were still lost that I, would prefer have not seen lost. That was a weird way to say it. A level that I would prefer to not see lost by the bulls is this low right here. This low from this candle right over here on Monday. Actually, Monday's low was around, 183.4 roughly. We lost that. I don't like that we lost that. Why? Because that was the low. This was the pivot that we used to essentially, go up and make this fresh all-time high at 195. The fact that we lost that pivot, to me, that was that 181 level, right? Remember before I kept mentioning the 181 level, and I would still use that as a level. Honestly, that's important to hold. But the reason I kept saying 181 before is because, that would be kind of losing a very key level that I wouldn't like to see lost. But now that, we had this push up, we had this push down, we held key levels, and then essentially off this low down here was the level that we ended up, making that fresh all-time highs. This to me became that pivot low. But because this level was lost, not by a lot, to be fair, it's a smidge, but lost nonetheless. and we made a lower low below it, that to me is a bit of a concern, because that to me is making me, it is making me slightly question the strength. Like, okay, but how much strength is there actually remaining in the stock, right? Because we also, don't forget, we ended up dropping on pretty significant volume as well. So that's my kind of concern. Now, again, it is slightly alleviated by the fact that we're still by the smallest margin, but still technically holding on to this level that was a resistance, now support, again, around 183 roughly, with kind of, giving it that wiggle room about 181 being that sort of, okay, that's not good. So, that is still sort of that contradicting aspect of it, of, the bearishness of losing this 183.4 level and making that lower low. So that's why I'm a little bit conflicted here, to be completely honest with you, right? I'm a little bit conflicted here. So the easiest way I would look at it is if Nvidia loses this trend line, if Nvidia loses 181, that to me is a major red flag, especially if it happens next week, because, well, keep in mind, Nvidia did print a very, very bearish looking candle on the weekly time frame. Now, this is a shooting star candle, which is a phenomenal candle, by the way. Shooting star candle, bull house. Oh, that's not what I wanted. This one here, right? Shooting star candle, it is a bearish reversal 59% of the time. Pretty good, right? So we'll just say 60% of the time, this is a bearish reversal candle. But again, with these candles, you need confirmation. What is the confirmation? Well, similar to the market, which also ended up printing a bearish engulfing candle, which is actually one of the best reversal candles, but also not perfect. Again, there's, you need confirmation. But for the markets and Nvidia, for them to avoid a stronger correction, 181 is important. But essentially, as long as next week does not close red, really, ultimately, below this week's low, essentially, as long as next week holds, the bulls are still in control. The bulls need to show up next week, though. It's very important. But essentially, again, if we close next week below this week's low on Nvidia, which is also pretty much below 181, that's going to be very concerning. That does give this candle, and that probably means the market's also closing below its low as well, would give the bearish engulfing on the market also validation that, that's probably not a good sign for bulls, and the bears most likely begin having some fun as well. So I think next week will be really crucial in that sense. So very important that the bulls step in next week to avoid a sharper and deeper correction. Now, again, even if we get intraday sell-off, that could be fine as long as it doesn't go below 181, number one. But number two, as long as it closes the week above still, because, again, what matters is weekly candle closures, or just candle closures in general, right? So worth mentioning that. But next week is going to be an important week, guys. So let's see how that plays out. Let's see what the bulls can manage to do or not, potentially. So I think it'll be crucial. But Nvidia still has potential. Again, watch for 181, watch for that trend line support. And as long as that holds, I think Nvidia can still bounce off of this and head higher. But if we start losing this level around here, it'll be hard for me to find anything too bullish to say about the stock, to be completely honest with you. So let's see, guys. Let's see. But that's kind of mainly what I got. In terms of seeing this coming, obviously it's impossible to, know when this is going to happen, things like that. There's divergences, but divergences don't always mean sell-off has to come. But what sign that I did notice that I was sharing with my members, I think starting on Tuesday, I think it was when I started sharing it in Discord. And then I started posting it on the YouTube's, thing. And I think I mentioned it in my videos as well, is the VIX. The VIX was starting to show signs of strength, right? I mentioned how the VIX needs to drop below 16 because now it's starting to show bullish breakout signs. The EMAs were crossing bullish. And then, the VIX now getting that substantial spike, but more importantly, it's holding up here, right? The fact that the VIX closed this high is not good for the market. The VIX needs to get crushed back, kind of like what it did here, starting Monday, ideally. Back below 20, ideally below 17.5, roughly. That's where the market, or that's what the VIX needs to do if the market wants to recover from, what was a pretty painful day in the markets, right? But if the VIX maintains strength and the VIX continues holding up here and does not get crushed back almost instantly, starting ideally Monday, that would be a concern. That could be putting more pressure on the markets, especially considering, like I said, SPY, it did lose some key levels, right? It did lose that trend line. It did lose the 9 and 21 EMAs. It is near the 50, which is good, but you can see it's been holding this trend line and the EMAs, pretty well for the majority of the time. So one thing I've noticed throughout my, several years now of trading and just, watching the markets is whenever the SPY or QQQ or both really are below the 21 EMA, the market's bearish. The market is going to be, in some level of bearishness. It doesn't mean a full-on crash, of course, but, it'll be weak, essentially. It'll be a weak markets. But if it ever reclaims it, kind of like here, this was a kind of a good example, right? Got below it. It could have been weak, but then it reclaimed the next candle and we resumed the uptrend. And we resumed the uptrend and we just continued rocketing and we just kept bouncing and bouncing and bouncing and bouncing. And, every dip got bought, right? Here it lost to 21 EMA, and then this one did go lower. As you can see, every time it tried to reclaim it, it couldn't. It tried to reclaim it for one candle, and then it just next candle lost it, and we continued lower. So it's just worth mentioning that the market, the 21 EMA is pretty important for the broader market, below which, yeah, it's a bit weak. Above which, the bulls are back in control. So worth monitoring that for the SPY, right? Which is currently sitting at 662.77. If we can get back above that, that'll be bullish. But let's see how it actually goes overall. But all in all, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you Monday. Peace.